In one of my most recent commentary uploads, the one I entitled Black Love is Officially Dead, I said a number of things in that commentary which I not only wanted to clear up, which in all honesty there really isn't that much to clear up because I pretty much laid things out the way I perceive them, but I also wanted to add a little bit of an extra addendum to that based upon some recent information that I just came across. Not so much information per se as it was essentially just more of the same rhetoric that we hear within this whole black gender war thing as to who's to blame and why intimate relationships between black men and black women are so tense, and how that affects not only our relationships but our perceived image. And just to recap, since everybody and their grandmother who has a disingenuous bent about themselves loves to just instantly throw out the accusatory, you're just a black woman basher, or you just hate black women, and la-di-da. Being on that whole chip on your shoulder emotional trip, essentially hearing what you want to hear, and simplifying it in terms of, oh, you just hate black women because you can't get none, or you're just lonely and whatever. Or even if they don't throw any qualifiers in there with it, they just automatically assume that based upon some of the information and based upon the tone, it's just like, well, you hate black women, you just want to make excuses for interracial dating, or you're self-hating, you hate yourself, do you hate your own mother because you came from a black woman, and blah 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 blah. And I have made no kinds of careful eggshell walking when I state emphatically that black women have to bear the brunt of the responsibility for why black relationships are failing. And I stated that if you want to see success, the black woman has to change. Because what happened with the society of black women, what has become common, is that black women, unlike women of other racial groups, have chosen this path of settling for mediocrity, and even less than mediocrity. And so, by settling for less than honorable, they have to bear the bulk of the responsibility for why black men are not stepping up their game to become men of honor and men of character. However, as I continue to reiterate, black men are so weak and so without character and so without any sense of self-worth that they will allow their own women to dictate terms to what kind of men they should be or what they should present themselves as, because they are just so thirsty for the vagina that all they're concerned about is finding the easiest access point from point A to point Z, without any consideration of the consequences or any consideration of the complications that it may cause to themselves, to their community, to their families, and even to society as a whole. And because of these two things, the African-American relationship dynamic will continue to be undesirable and undesired, because each side claims to be waiting for the other side to make the first move, when in reality, apparently, nobody truly and honestly wants to see a change. They like the status quo, with those few exceptions of those black men and black women who demand more, who scream and holler and beg for more, because they want to see us rise up out of these dumps that we've allowed ourselves to descend into. And they want to see a restoration of strong black families and strong black intimate relationships. And these are the ones who are basically throwing up their hands in frustration, saying, there's nothing that we can hope to accomplish by spreading the word, by begging and pleading for those of quote-unquote our community to get their act together so that we might be able to do something awesome. And so as a result of that frustration, yeah, you will in some instances get the occasional shoving of black men in front of the train by black women, and the shoving of black women in front of the train by black men. But again, only a small handful of that comes as a result of those who are decent and of some character and some value expressing themselves out of frustration. But more often when we hear stink talk like this, it comes from the very same mediocrity acceptors on both sides, black men and black women, who are essentially complaining just to hear themselves complaining, or to form a little group and form a little clique and form a little network, to have a convenient target to point their fingers at to help explain why they themselves are so miserable. And so that's why I say, though it's not impossible, seeking a repair is essentially a waste of time waiting around hoping for the improbable, and as a result deny themselves a chance at some real semblance of happiness, even though it may mean going outside of what you may consider your territory. But personal happiness trumps all. But making an unfulfilling decision at the sacrifice of your own personal happiness is never worth it. Not in a situation like this. And so that's why when I came across this little article that I recently read in Madame Noir a few days ago, giving out a list of the things that black women cannot do that a white woman can get away with, you know, that whole white women do it too sort of mantra that tries to excuse black negative behavior, that tries to excuse the shameful behavior of African American women. A lot of it was more of the same mantra that we kept hearing about how there are just certain things you can't do. You can't have a baby out of wedlock and expect to be accepted blindly and with open arms as a typical white woman may. You can't go around flaunting your wares and shaking your ass and, you know, the whole typical spiel things that we pretty much become well immersed in as a result of this whole gender war thing. You know, nothing new under the sun. But the article also chose to focus on one of the aspects of what is considered stereotypical of the black female in America, which interferes with her being considered an approachable someone you might want to pursue as a intimate partner. And that was this idea that black women have this air of unapproachability about themselves, these stern faces, this lack of friendly countenance about themselves. They always exude with what is perceived as a very standoffish attitude, or that they're completely unapproachable, or that they have this barrier between them and yourself that puts restrictions on how close you're allowed to get to them. And in light of what I was saying in my previous commentary upload, I pondered this a little bit, because as we've always heard throughout this gender war thing, that the bad, shameful, disrespectful ones being so plentiful, their behavior will filter down, and as a result of guilt by association, will negatively affect the perception of those black women who don't fall into these categories. You know, the ones who are being called ratchet or trashy or confrontational or attitudinal, or however you may desire it. Not to say that some of them aren't. I'm sure there are quite a few of them that are, despite the fact that they may be considered good and loyal and decent and well-rounded and all that other stuff. That's not to say that even the quote-unquote good sisters are somehow immune. But I'm saying that because of all the negativity that comes from the greater bulk of it, even where there are small instances that are revealed, even within the good sisters, it gets amplified out of proportion. And so there goes the stereotype again. See, all black women this, or all black women this, or typical black woman this, that, or the other. And so essentially, these ladies cannot win for losing. Now, I'm well aware that this whole stereotype about the unapproachable black woman thing goes further back than just this modern day gender war thing, that this was one of the things that was stereotypically placed upon the shoulders that black women had to bear throughout history. But with the advent of the late 20th century on into the 21st century, where it all just got amplified and accepted and treated more or less as normal, it's going to be a difficult rat to shake away from their necks. And unfortunately, black men are going to keep buying into that stereotype, including the good, decent, honorable black men who are looking for good, decent, honorable black sisters, and still have this air of suspicion about themselves whenever they encounter a black woman, no matter how good or noble she may appear to be. But as I was complaining about in my last commentary on this issue, I had made the declaration that because black men, as a general rule, have forgotten how to treat black women with decency, with honor, with respect, as a result of all of us wallowing around in this great sea of negativity and negativity, I essentially instructed black women to cash in what little remaining chips that they have left and try to seek their fulfillment elsewhere. Because I don't think you're going to find it with black men anymore unless you strive really, really, really hard. And I don't think anybody wants to put that much effort into trying to find a good man where so few good men actually exist. And that falls right in line with this additional perception that I had when I read this particular segment of this Madame Noir thing, where it complained about the perceived unapproachability of the black female,
always looking stern-faced, always having this air of, I won't let you get close to me. You know, the whole black women, you need to smile more, you need to be cordial, you need to stop having such a sour-looking face, you need to stop stiffening up your shoulders every time a black man walks in the room and la-di-da. And I essentially asked the question in that previous upload, which I'll ask again. Why should black women lower their guard when all they ever get anymore is, yo ma, you got you a nice ass on you? Or they're constantly being hounded and harassed, refusing to take no for an answer or any other instructions, which lets these fools know, look, I am not interested. Or, as I'm starting to hear from quite a number of black women who are trying to get a lot of these thirsty parasites shaken off of them, I gotta take different routes on the way home because I try to make it plain and clear that I'm not interested, or I've got somebody in my life, or, you know, I'm trying to be nice, but I gotta go right now. And they can't shake these zombies off their tails because they're trying to follow them home, trying to figure out where they live. You know, and as I said, if this is the kind of stuff that black women have to deal with anymore, especially your decent, respectable black women who have no baggage and who don't want to have any baggage, then again, I raise the question, what is the value of a black man then? Which is why I'm disagreeing with this article now, where it's essentially instructing African American women to soften yourselves, to become more feminine. I say, screw that. Because if this is the kind of disrespect that you have to keep enduring from your own men, I mean, if this is standard operational procedure for what it means to be a black woman in America today, whether you're ratchet or whether you're honorable, but if this is how black men are going to behave by default, then my personal advice is continue having the stern face and the air of unapproachability. Continue to put that barrier up simply because you are afraid to take the chance of lowering it. And as I said before, it would be easy enough to throw all this blame into the lap of the thugged out or the swagged out or the ones wearing their pants half off their ass, or, you know, the ones talking in ebonics, or ones that never finished school or any of this mess. It'd be real easy to do that, but unfortunately, this is a disease which has contaminated even into the sphere of the so-called good brothers now. Because just because he's wearing a business suit doesn't mean he's on some of that negative bullshit. I hear about it all the time from concerned black sisters. And let me tell you, if I were in their position, if that was the kind of disrespect that I had to endure were I a black female myself, I would shut off just as hard with just as much determination. I wouldn't soften myself or open myself up either. So I'm there in your corner on this one, sisters. Don't give these niggas any opportunity to interpret your friendliness or, at the very least, your cordialness as signs of weakness. My advice, keep putting up that front. Because at this point, I think that's the only thing you've got left. That's your only ace in the hole right now in dealing with this, I don't know, what's the male version of ratchetness? See, we're losing, black people, and we're going to keep losing as long as we keep settling for the mediocrity and for the substandard. And when those of us who are stuck in between decide that we can't handle this, or we don't want to deal with it, or we don't want to be identified with this crap, and you're too clueless to realize that you keep pushing us out, then as soon as a black sister hooks up with a white man or a Hispanic man, or a black man hooks up with a white woman or an Asian woman or whatever the heck it is, first thing y'all want to do, sell out. No, we're not the ones who are selling out. You're the ones who sold out. You sold us all out. You have made being an African American a badge of shame. We were once a prideful race, but now I don't see anything that anybody's doing outside of the small handful who come to this epiphany, who realizes and recognizes that the only way to save ourselves is to just separate ourselves and get out and sever all ties with it. Ain't nothing ever going to stop us from being black. There ain't nothing we can do about that, and there's nothing we want to do about that. We have no shame about being who and what we are. But when it has to be held down into the same pit of despair and destruction with the rest of the filth and the slime and the rotting, putrid corpse that it's becoming, don't blame us for seeking another path. And don't you dare call us or refer to us as the sellouts or the ones who hate our race. Because you are the ones who want this thing to implode. You are the ones who want this thing to stagnate and deteriorate. You are the ones who want to make any and every excuse as to why you won't succeed, why you won't excel, and why you refuse to become something awesome and great. Because your idea of empowering yourselves is remaining stuck on the bottom and seeing just how many more you can keep stuck down on the bottom with you. But sorry, Charlie, we've got better taste than that. And we're going to seek our happiness and our success with or without you. And it's up to you whether or not you want to decide to be with us or against us. Take your pick. End of line.